Hi, I've always enjoyed the study of history and religion. I always found it interesting how much the religions of the past continue to influence us today in many ways. One of the things I've always enjoyed is the Egyptian religion, and today I'd like to give a little bit of overview of how parts of Egyptian religion and culture are still with us today and have influenced even some of our holy books. To begin with, I'd like to point out some words that are still with us today and have Egyptian origins. Hopefully you can all see this. One of the words, something we all say rather normally, is amen, something we would use to end a prayer. This word, its origins, actually comes from Amun, who were essentially the head god of Egypt back in its day. So essentially they're the same word. We pronounce them a little differently, but it's the same word. Also, we have the word up here, Adonai. It is a common word for God, but when you break it down, it actually comes out to, in part, be about a guy named I, who is a main character in the monotheist Exodus story of Egypt. We'll get back to him. But one day, when he does become Pharaoh, he adds the word Aten to his name. So we have Atenai. And this is what the monotheists who worship the god Aten would have called him. So that's something that's still with us. Also, then you even have the word Israel. If you look at it very closely, right in the middle, it has the word Ra and El. El also being an ancient name for God. And those things are still with us today. Part of the monotheist history I would like to give you guys an overview of today begins around the 1300s BC with a guy named Amenhotep III. He began some changes, shifting the focus away from the god Amun to the god Aten. He did this because the Amunian priests did not favor the son that he wanted to become pharaoh, Amenhotep IV. As it was, eventually his son Amenhotep IV does become pharaoh, and he changes his name to Akhenaten. From there, he furthers the changes that his father made, eventually becoming a monotheist, getting rid of the god Amun altogether, getting rid of his temples, and getting rid of even the name that is etched in stone, getting rid of those names. Eventually, to get rid of the priests, he either fires them or he bribes them to join him in the new capital that he builds in present-day Amarna. It is in this capital that he furthers more of the changes. He builds a very luxurious palace, fills it with gardens. One of these gardens even had a couple trees that no one else could eat from except for the pharaoh. It is believed these gardens were so elaborate and the trees so special that they are the actual origins for the story of the Garden of Eden. As it was, though, since all the luxury and all the wealth of Egypt was going to this new capital city, it was actually creating vast hardships for the rest of Egypt who were having to support this place. It is even believed that 9 of the 10 plagues of Egypt are a reference to the hardships created by Akhenaten and his luxury. The 10th plague may have actually been dealing with Akhenaten's the death of his only son, but we're not exactly sure about that. As it was, we get back to that guy named I. He is also referenced as Divine Father I. He was the guy running the place. So while Pharaoh was just being Pharaoh in his luxury, he was running everything. Eventually he has enough because he's seen the sorrow, he's seen the poverty of Egypt every day. And when he has enough, he decides to do a military takeover and get rid of the monotheists. Very briefly, it is believed that it may have happened, as the past force suggests, in the middle of the night and with great haste. Military come in, take the people, remove them, and they take them north, quite possibly going the actual route that the biblical Israelites would have taken as well. They moved them north, and of course the lands north of Egypt weren't quite ready for them, so they did have to wait. People debate whether it's an actual 40 years or not, but they did have to wait for a while the Egyptian army went north, conquered some land, and got things ready for them. Eventually these monotheists headed north, and of course they continued to serve the god Aten, and whenever they referenced their new pharaoh I, they called him Atenai or Adonai. And so a lot of this monotheistic experience of the Egyptians when they went north stayed with them. It stayed in their holy books and eventually recorded and stayed in the Hebrew scriptures, where we have these things for us today. And so as it is, the religions of the past, their influences, their stories have stuck with us today, and we still have them being part of who we are. All right. Thank you very much.